How do you find storage information from the Linux command line? Most of us know the classic ls-tech-l, but that's only going to give you information on files and directories in a specific location. What if you want more information, such as information about the storage device itself, file system information, available versus used storage, or where the device is located on your system? I still remember the first time that I had to go out and get this information. I had to do a bunch of Google searches. I drove myself a little crazy going through it, but I did survive, and so will you. But don't worry. I'm going to be showing you how to save yourself the pain of having to do tons of Google searches. This is B from Tay Talk Tech, and today I'm going to be showing you 5 built-in Linux tools for getting storage information. Stick with me. I have a favor to ask. If you like this type of video and want to see more content like it, make sure you are subscribed and hit the bell button for notification. Also, don't forget to give this video a like if you like it. Let me know what you liked, didn't like, or if you have any comments, questions, concerns, or emotional outbursts down in the comments below. Lastly, stick around all the way to the end to get the most out of this video. Let's do this thing. All right, so the Linux tools I'm going to be showing you today are built right into Linux. Every Linux system that I have actually set up across my home network, and it's more than 10 at this stage, has these tools already available. So with these tools, you can get all of the important storage information you could need and not have to worry about installing additional applications. It also allows you to get this information in environments where you don't have privileges to install additional applications, which is going to be a pretty common thing out in the professional world, the enterprise world, and all that kind of stuff. So I do plan on doing a video on some additional tools that are not built in, so make sure you're subscribed so you will be able to get that when it drops. All right, so let's go ahead and go down to the desktop. The first command that we're going to run is fdisk -l. All right, this is going to require either root or sudo privileges. We're going to go ahead and use sudo here. This is going to give us a long list of all of the devices on our system. So we can see that we've got this one here, we've got this disk here, this NVMe here, this other NVMe up here. I'm going to go ahead and narrow this down to a single drive, just because it'll be a lot easier to digest by looking at just a single drive. And I just want to give you guys a heads up, I will be increasing and decreasing the size of the text throughout this video, so I'm going to apologize in advance if any of it gets a little hard to read, but when I shrink it down, I am trying to allow you to see it in a much more digestible fashion. So I thank you very much for your patience with that. So let's go ahead and clear this out. We're going to do sudo fdisk -l, and we're going to do dev sda. All right, we're going to get a lot of good information here from using this command. So if you're not familiar with Fdisk is a partitioning application, but it can also be used to list information about an individual disk and partition. Some of the information it's going to show you is it's going to give you the disk name, which is going to be this one right here. You'll recognize that because that's the one that I actually put into the command. It's going to give you the size in gigabytes, which is this right here. And remember, those are a little bit different than gigabytes. So this is not going to match the amount of the capacity of your drive, so just don't be worried if you see that. It's going to give you the number of bytes, which we can see right here. It's going to give us the number of sectors that make up that drive. Those are just like little individual storage blocks. It's going to give you the disk model. This one right here, it tells you what the model of the disk is. This is an ADATA SU800. It's going to give you units and sector size, which is going to be right here. I'm sorry, it's going to give you units and sector size, and they are the size of the individual disk sectors that I mentioned up here. It's going to be this one and this one right here, these two. I/O size, minimal, optimal. This is the cluster size. Clusters are just groupings of sectors into a logical format. And then the disk label type, this is going to be the partitioning type of this drive, which in this particular case is GPT. And then after that, we have the disk identifier that will uniquely identify this specific device. And then below that, down here, it's actually going to list the partitions. Now, one thing I do want to tell you in advance is that you'll notice, if you're paying close attention, that you're not going to see all of these drives in every single one of the outputs that we do for various reasons. Now, one thing I can tell you about this drive right here is this drive is dedicated to a virtual NAS that I have running on this server. So you aren't going to see it mounted in the same way that you're going to see other disks mounted. So just keep that in mind. All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and clear this out. And let's move on to the second command. The second command that we're going to be doing is DFTH. Now, what this command is going to do is it's going to report file system space usage. It will not show you details about the disks themselves, like we saw in Fdisk. By default, it will only show you mounted file systems. So there we go. And if you notice here, that SDA drive that we just looked at, it's not here. Again, it's because it is connected to a virtual NAS on this server. So it is not going to be showing up here in the mounted drives. It's not mounted on this particular system. But let's go ahead and go through this output. So here in the output, you're going to have the file system name, which is this one, which is right here, very similar to what we saw in the previous one. It's also going to give us the total size. It'll give it to us gigabytes, megabytes. It's going to give us the used and available. And it's also going to give us a percentage of the amount used. And then it's also going to let us know where it is mounted. Now, the reason that we're using the TAC-H option is because it will put this usage in human readable format like gigabytes, megabytes, etc. You can actually see all devices by doing DFTH. Let's actually just clear this out. It's still going to overrun, but here we can see a lot more output here, and this is going to be all the different file systems on the system. So this will include any that are physical, logical. Well, they're all kind of logical, but this will show you all of the different ones that are spread throughout the system with different purposes and different uses and all that stuff. So that's why I typically don't use this one, just because the output's very overwhelming. But you can also do the same information for a. Let's just do this one. Let's just take this one right here. Actually, let's go with this one. This one. I'm going to do clear DFTH. I'm going to do that. You can do it for an individual. You can do that. You can do this for either an individual disk or drive. So there we go. We've got all this information. That'll go ahead and cut out what it is that you're looking for, and cut out what you're not looking for. And this is great because it tells you how much space you got. And it tells you where stuff is mounted. That's usually what I use it for, is I'm just looking here. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, where's my root partition at, and all that good stuff. So, because that's usually the one that I'm most concerned with, just because, especially on some of these virtual machines, is I usually only set them up with about 25 gigabytes of disk space. And sometimes, depending on how many different things that I've been messing around with on there, I may end up using all of it. Sometimes I forget that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just like, download this, download that. And then next thing you know, I'm at like, why is this system running ridiculously slow? Then I go in here and I'm like, oh, it's because it's at 98% usage. Let's go ahead and clear that out. So this is one I use pretty regularly. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about the next one. The next one that we're going to be talking about is going to be BLKID. Now this one you will need sudo for. It'll say like, hey, I don't have that command, if you don't use sudo or root privileges for this one. So now this one gives you some very specific like device information. It'll give you like information about the different storage devices on your system, and these are going to be typically, some of the stuff is going to be unique to the drives themselves. Now, if you're ever setting up FS tab to go ahead and have a drive automatically mount on boot, this is what you would want to use to do that, which is the UUID. So let's go ahead and go through this information. So it's going to give you the name of the device, which is right here. It's going to give you the UUID, which is going to it's given to each partition. It gives it a unique identifier. The type is going to be the type of file system. The PTTYPE is the partition type, which you'll see like right, where'd it go? Right here. And then also the block size, that's the size of the individual storage block. which you're seeing right here. And it's not all of these aren't going to be in each one of them. It's just going to depend on the file system that's on there, how the drive is formatted, and all that good stuff. But really what I use this for is getting that UUID so I can mount stuff in FS tab. I don't use it super often, but I do use it often enough to where it's something that I really wanted to point out, because this is stuff that can be really, really helpful as you're setting up a Linux system. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. Let's go on to the fourth one. So this one right here is going to be LSBLK. And this one's a pretty easy one to understand because it's LSBLK. It's like, oh, it's going to list blocks, like block devices. All right, and I really like this one. This one gives me some general information about the disk, but it doesn't give me too much. You know, if I'm just like, hey, how much space does that disk have? And oh, hey, what are the partitions on that one? And where are they mounted at, and stuff like that. You can get a lot of this information from DFTH as well. All right, so let's go ahead and go through this output. So of course you're going to have the actual name, and see here you can see that it's got a shorter name for it. We don't have the dev in there, so you know, just keep that in mind. If you're going through here, you're not going to have all of that information, even though you know. Once you get more familiar with Linux systems, you typically know, hey, I got to put a dev here, /dev here before I go ahead and do this one. I use this one occasionally. I definitely use DFTH more often, but this one is available as well. So let's go ahead and talk about what this output is. Of course, we've got the name of the device. We've got the major and minor identifiers. This goes back to the video I did recently on character and block devices, so go check that one out. This will just kind of be how the system identifies it. The RM here defines whether this is a read-only device or not. 1 indicates yes, 0 indicates no. Clearly, nothing but zeros, and I'm sorry that is over here, and I did jump a little bit ahead. RM indicates the device is removable. It'll be 1 for removal, 0 for not removable. And then, of course, here we have the size. The type is going to be the type of device that it is. We can see here's a disk partition, and all that good stuff. And this last section is going to be the mount points. Now, you can use this command to get a bit more information. I'm going to shrink this down because it does give us quite a bit of output. LSBLK, TAC, F, and this is going to include file system information. So here we go. We've got the name here. Now we've also got the file system type, which is going to be right here. We can see that these two right here are ZFS, VFAT, ext4, swap, ext4. We're also going to get the, let's see here, the file system version right here. All right, see if we can see that there. And then after that, we're going to get the label. We're going to get the UUID again. And this is one thing that this is good for. If you do LSBLK TAC F, it's much easier to read than the previous BLKID command. You can actually see that pretty easily here. It's also going to give you the percentage of the file system. I'm sorry, it's going to give you the file system available, and then it's going to give you the percentage of the file system used. So it's incorporating some of that stuff that we saw with the DFTH. And then it's also going to give you the file system mount points. Now you can do this one again. You can do it with TAC A. This is going to give you all of the mounted and non-mounted devices. And partitions, like we can see here, we've got some loops that are not mounted, and then we've got these that aren't mounted because they're connected to the other system. I could mount them on this one because that virtual machine is not running currently, but I've got some stuff in the works for that, so we're not going to go ahead and touch those disks at this time. All right, cool. So yeah, that's a pretty. It's got quite a little bit. I shouldn't say quite a bit, but it's got a little bit of versatility, that command. So and all of these commands are going to have more options with them, so just visit the man page if you're curious and wanting more information about these commands. So let's go ahead and clear this out. All right, so we got one last command. Don't use this one super often, but I wanted to go ahead and show it to you. All right, we're using LSUSB. This is going to provide information about USB devices connected to the system. Now, this is not only going to give you information on USB drives, this will also give you other devices that are considered USB. Like in my particular case, the AX200 Bluetooth is actually considered a USB device. That's why it's showing up here. But these right here are, like these ones right here, these are USB ports on the system. This one actually has, two USB 3.0 ports and then 2.0 ports on the back of it, and how it's going to break down will just depend on how the system's set up and the USB controllers. Like this one, I think has 2 separate controllers, and I believe this one right here should be for the front one. The front has a USB power. And I think it also works for data, but it also has a USB-C on the front, and it's probably just put into a singular one. It's really going to vary by device, so don't get too stressed about this. If you're curious, go ahead and Google what it says there, and usually you can get more or less what it is. This is going, yeah, like I said, it provides information about USB devices connected to the system. Output provides the location on the system using the bus and device number. So like if you've watched any of my Linux virtualization videos, this is where we're getting that information from, to be able to go ahead and identify those specific USB devices when we are connecting them to our virtual machine. So that's going to identify its location on our system. Not going to get into bus, what the bus is and all that good stuff. It's got the ID for the device, which is going to be right here. I honestly don't use that too often. It's going to give a brief description of the device. Information listed on there may or may not be generic. So I just, like, again, going back to what I said a minute ago. And then you can also do LSB TAC A to get, whoops, is it LSUSB TAC A? Hold on. There was something I wanted to show you with the A. I think I might have made a mistake here with this one. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't mean A, I meant V. V, if you do V for verbose, it's going to give you a ton of information. So instead of that LSUSB TAC A, use V for verbose. It's going to give you a ton of information. A ton. I'm not going to go through all this because it'll take us another hour to get through all of this and all that good stuff. So yeah, if you're curious, go ahead and check that out. All right, so great. That is the 5 commands. This stuff can be super important when managing a Linux machine, and now you know how to find it. Make sure you check out this other video from my channel. Remember, mistakes make you better, so keep on making them. Thank you so much for watching my video, and have the greatest of days.